this, fear that. Stay tuned.
Every ad, every word, every story you grew up on programmed your reactions. The difference is, I do it on purpose. We strip out the junk, recode what works.
Today, we are diving deep into the very fabric of our world. But I'm not talking about atoms and stars. No, we're looking at the reality we actually experience every single day. We're going to explore the architects of that reality.
Okay, so let's start with this really powerful idea from the writer Robert Anton Wilson. The map is not the territory. It sounds simple, but it's huge. Think about it. The way you understand the world, all the labels, the stories you tell yourself, your beliefs, that's your map. But the world itself, in all its raw, unfiltered, chaotic glory, that's the territory. What this really means is that our entire life is spent navigating these maps, not the territory itself.
And that, right there, leads us to the absolute core question of this whole explainer. If we're all living our lives based on these maps, who draws them? Who gets to decide what roads are important, what landmarks get put on there, and what parts just get left out completely?
To even begin to answer that, we've got to start with the biggest map of them all, our shared public reality. This is the big story a society tells itself about what's true, what matters, and what's even possible.
Thinkers were wrestling with this 100 years ago. You had Walter Lippmann, who talked about stereotypes, these little pictures we carry around in our heads that act like filters for everything we see. But then along comes Edward Bernays, basically the father of PR, and he takes it a giant step further. He says, wait a minute, why just accept those pictures? What if we could engineer them? He literally called it crystallizing public opinion, the art of actively shaping the maps inside everyone's heads.
Now let's jump forward to a much more critical take on how this public map gets maintained. In their book Manufacturing Consent, Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman laid out something called the propaganda model. It's their explanation for how mass media, even without some secret conspiracy, ends up creating a map of the world that just so happens to serve the powerful.
And here's how the model works. It's not about some guy in a smoke-filled room saying, "Don't print that." It's about a series of filters. The media overwhelmingly relies on a tiny stream of official sources from the government and big corporations. And if they step out of line and report something that challenges those sources, they get flack, all kinds of pressure and complaints to discipline them. The end result is a consensus reality where the only credible voices are officials and approved experts, while the experiences of ordinary people, well, they just don't make it onto the map.
So, okay, we've seen how these huge forces can draw the maps we all share. But what if the map isn't even the right metaphor? There's a totally different school of thought that says we should just forget about the pictures in our heads and instead look at the cold, hard science of what we actually do.
And this is where the behaviorist B.F. Skinner comes in and just throws a grenade into the whole conversation. He argued that when we use words like hunger or intelligence, we're basically tricking ourselves. We're taking something that's a process, a behavior, and we're turning it into a thing, some invisible cause inside of us that might not even be real. He's asking, what if this whole idea of an inner map is just a story we made up?
So, if we don't have these inner maps driving our actions, what does? For Skinner, the answer was ridiculously simple: operant conditioning. It's just the process where our behavior is shaped by what happens after we do it. If you do something and get a reward, hey, you're probably going to do it again. If you get punished, you're less likely to. That's it. The whole process is just brutally simple and totally observable. You don't need to guess what's in someone's head, you just watch. 1. A person does something. 2. Something happens right after. And 3. That consequence changes how likely they are to do it again. It's a simple loop of action and consequence, running over and over and over.
And here is the absolute key takeaway from the behaviorist view. Reality isn't a map that you're interpreting. It's a system of rewards and punishments in your environment that is directly controlling your actions. The architect of your reality isn't some map maker, it's the environment you live in, plain and simple.
But wait a second, are we really just little robots responding to our environment? That feels kind of incomplete, doesn't it? So, let's swing the pendulum back. Let's go from that stark world of external control and dive back into the rich, subjective world inside our own minds and ask, can we be the architects of our own internal maps?
And right here, you see two totally different playbooks for creating change. Skinner's approach is all external. If you want to change what someone does, you have to change the environment. But a whole other way of thinking, pioneered by people like Milton Erickson and later bundled into what's called Neuro-Linguistic programming, or NLP, It takes the exact opposite approach. They say, no, the real leverage is in changing the internal map, how you represent the world to yourself.
This quote from someone learning NLP for the first time, it just nails the feeling this approach gives you. It's this aha moment where you realize your inner world isn't just a random mess. It actually has a structure, a kind of programming language. And once you learn it, you can start rewriting the code yourself.
At its core, NLP is a set of tools for messing with your own head in a useful way. It's based on this really cool idea. Find people who are amazing at something, figure out the internal map and strategies they're running in their head to get those results, and then teach that map to other people. It's all about changing your subjective reality by directly playing with the pictures, sounds, and feelings that create it.
So how does this actually work? Let's try a quick one. Think of a bad memory. Not the worst ever, just a nagging one. Got it? Okay, picture it clearly. Now in your mind, put a big, silly, colorful picture frame around it. Done? Now rapidly shrink that whole picture down, smaller and smaller, until it's just a tiny little dot. And finally, just whoosh, push that dot way off into the distance until it disappears. Now just notice how the feeling connected to that memory has changed. You see, by changing the structure of the mat, you change the experience. You're literally remodeling your own brain. Okay, we've talked about how the public map gets drawn. We've talked about how we can redraw our own personal maps. Now for this last section, we are going to take the most radical step of all. We're going to start questioning the very ground we're standing on, the territory itself. And to do that, we have to look at this absolute bombshell of a quote from Terence McKenna. He says, "There is no reality." Whoa, there are only people who know this and people who don't know this. He's suggesting that reality, as this solid, fixed thing out there, just doesn't exist. It's a game. And some people know it's a game, while others are just pieces on the board.
This pulls the rug out from under everything we've talked about. Because if the public map is manufactured and our private maps can be reprogrammed, then what does that say about the territory they're supposed to represent? Maybe the territory isn't solid ground at all. Maybe it's just another deeper kind of map, a shared story we've all agreed to believe in, a story that maybe can be broken.
So let's just put the pieces together. 1. If our shared public reality is actively manufactured.
And 2, if our own personal, subjective reality can be consciously reprogrammed.
Then what's left? What is the bedrock? What then is the territory?
And maybe the most powerful, most terrifying, and most exciting answer is this. There is no final territory to find. It's just maps, all the way down. And if that's true, it means the power to draw, to erase, to edit, and to create the reality you live in, ultimately that power rests with you. You are the final architect.